2013 and 2014. But when she started, disappearing off WWE television, dropping the championship to different divas like Paige and Nikki Bella, that's when I started wondering about AJ's status in WWE and her contractual state with the company. I said, it was time for AJ to come to a pivotal point in her career. It was time for her to make a choice whether she wanted to be there all the time or contemplate retirement. Obviously, she contemplated retirement. She had been for a while. She obviously heard one of my latest video blogs and went through with making the decision to retire, disappointing a lot of fans. Because she didn't go public with the announcement of her retirement in the ring, whether it be in the U.S., Canada, the United Kingdom, wherever WWE was at the time, I think as a result of that, she let a lot of fans down, and she owes every fan of hers, those who believed in AJ Lee, I think she owes them an explanation, and hopefully within the next 2 to 3 weeks, we'll get that explanation. Even if we don't get that explanation from AJ Lee, I think that a lot of fans are going to be disappointed for following her for so many years. On her Facebook page and on her Twitter, she has millions of fans who have subscribed to her conversation and who are following her on her Twitter. And she has even more, and her Twitter and Facebook count is expected to rise because of this huge announcement. She's one of the more talked about divas in professional wrestling right now because of this huge announcement. Usually that's the way it goes. There's a lot of attention given you in the novelty of a major announcement that you will drop. I could go on Twitter and announce my retirement from doing radio shows and covering professional wrestling, and I would get just as much attention probably as an AJ Lee or a wrestler like Alberto Del Rio or someone announcing their retirement, but that's got to do with a lot of novelty surrounding this because she's one of the more talked about divas right now. That will die down. But, I think we've seen the last of her. I don't think we can expect a return from her. Some people go back on their word after announcing the retirement. They show up years after announcing the retirement. But I think that AJ Lee is going to be someone who's going to remain true to this decision. I think we have definitely seen the last of her. The words of JBL this past Monday on Raw during the Divas match when they were providing commentary for it between himself, Byron Saxton, and Booker T, his words couldn't have been more true. He said she was done with professional wrestling, and I think that's the case with AJ Lee. She is done. She's defeated every top diva in the division. She's won the title a total 3 times. But what also really lets me down about AJ Lee's retirement is when she won the Diva Award of 2014 for Diva of the Year, the Slammy Awards last year, she said she was going to be a 4-time Divas champion. We hadn't seen the last of her, and because of that promo she dropped at last year's Slammy Awards, I think she also let a lot of people down because a lot of people were expecting her to show up sometime throughout 2015 with her absence being a huge conversation on social media. I thought that a lot of people were thinking she was going to show up in 2014. I bet that. And win the championship back for a record 4th time, more times than anybody in the Divas division ever had held the championship. We have seen some of the best divas in the business hold that title. AJ has held the record 3 times. A lot of people were hoping AJ was going to show up, win the title, especially after defeating the Divas champion Nikki Bella in a tag team match with herself and Paige going up against the Bella Twins for this year's WrestleMania, getting momentum on the shoulders of AJ following through in the fallout of WrestleMania 31 on the very first Monday Night Raw herself. Naomi and I believe Natalya defeated the Bella Twins and a tag team partner in what turned out to be AJ's final match. If you were to say to me the fallout of WrestleMania 31 would witness AJ's final match on the Raw following WrestleMania 31, I would have looked at you and said you're retarded in response because I never would have believed you that we would be seeing AJ's final match in the fallout of WrestleMania 31 would be sod, and we got a tweet on Twitter the following week from her making this official that she had retired. So I definitely think she owes a lot of fans, especially super fans of AJ out there who have the AJ Lee fan pages that will obviously be kept open out of respect and as a tribute to AJ Lee, along with all the videos that have been uploaded on YouTube in the way of tribute videos, commentaries, and written reviews that have been posted throughout the internet on discussional forums and professional wrestling websites like my column on my comments on the retirement of AJ for In This Corner with Jonathan Clarke, which I have gone through with publishing. I said a pretty pointed view on AJ's retirement. I was pretty direct with AJ's retirement. I truly told you how I felt about AJ's retirement, along with being very thankful for everything AJ gave us throughout her run in WWE. I also had a lot of regret because, I felt like I didn't talk about AJ enough, and I think that AJ owed a lot of fans explanations as to why she made this decision. Was it something going on in her personal life? Was it something going on in her professional life, a contractual dispute that prohibited her from wrestling or made her feel as if she was prohibited from continuing on with her career? What was following AJ? What was sort of haunting AJ? I think there was an explanation that has been looming for this for quite some time. There is still a lot of novelty with it. Hopefully more will be released as to why AJ made this earth-shattering announcement, shaking the very foundation of the professional wrestling business. But the more important thing is, I feel for every one of you who supported AJ, especially the AJ Lee superfans out there, if I can get away with calling you that, because I really think there are a lot of AJ superfans out there. There are more superfans of Divas out there than there actually are the Randy Ortons and John Cenas of the world out there, and that's why I think all you superfans out there definitely need, you marks if you would, definitely deserve explanation as to why AJ left us, and left us so suddenly in the professional wrestling business. I will never cover up the fact that I was a huge AJ Lee fan. That was why I was posting so many AJ Lee videos on my Facebook page, tweeting them for you on Twitter, referencing her a lot in my columns and my video blogs on YouTube. I did an AJ Lee video series for the better part of the last 2.5 years. I was very probable when it came to the future of AJ Lee, and I said about 2.5 years ago that you could easily get 6 to 7 years out of AJ, and we didn't get even that. We got 5 years out of AJ. We got 6 out of Kelly, 6 out of Eve Torres, 6 or 7 out of Michelle McCool, 6 or 7 out of Layla, but we got 5 out of AJ Lee. The littlest amount of time we got ever out of a Diva, seemingly, came from AJ Lee. Even Stacy Keibler and Tori Wilson back in the early thousands gave us a decent run, but we never got that out of AJ Lee. Can she be classified in the same category as a Trish Stratus or a Fabulous Moolah? Definitely not, but I think she can be classified in the category of the greatest diva of definitely this era of professional wrestling. I don't think you can categorize her on the same level of a Trish Stratus because of the amount of time she spent in WWE as opposed to Trish Stratus' 7 years in WWE as opposed to AJ's 5. An additional 2 coming from Stratus, an additional few years coming from some of the best divas of the early thousands. She may not be considered in the same category of a Trish Stratus, but definitely in the category of being one of the greatest divas of this era of divas wrestling, because we have seen so many divas, especially in this era, kind of come and go. Will the door of opportunity swing open for a diva to capitalize on the exit of AJ from WWE? Definitely. I think Summer Rae has a lot of potential with her character, and a lot of the upcoming divas on the NXT women's roster seem to have an opportunity more greater than they've ever had before. One that I'm a huge fan of is Alexis Bliss. Charlotte, Sasha Banks, who calls herself the Boss, the current NXT women's champion, recently winning the title. I think the door is more widely open than it's ever been because WWE definitely have to find a way of rebounding and countering the loss of AJ because they didn't even expect this. Usually what WWE do when they hear of talks of a diva contemplating retirement, for instance, what they will do is they will desperately try to keep the diva. I know they did it with Kelly. They failed doing that because her offer with reality television was far greater than anything WWE could throw her way. They failed with her. They failed with Eve Torres. They failed with so many divas over the years. Stacy Keibler was another one back in 2005 because of her success seen with the ABC's Dancing with the Stars. They have tried so many times, failed endless amounts of times trying to keep divas, and obviously they have failed in trying to keep AJ. I would assume they tried to keep her for an additional few years. The maximum amount of time would have been 5 additional years with one of the biggest contracts they could have possibly offered her, with 3 being the secondary biggest offer they could have offered her with a contract. They obviously failed, or obviously something greater was going on in AJ's life. Either a bigger offer was on the table for her from other wrestling promotions, or with things going on outside of the wrestling business, maybe a movie deal, a TV deal was probably on the table for AJ. There was obviously something greater for AJ outside of the WWE, and this is what led to her demise, if you would, with professional wrestling. But with her demise came a lot of great moments, and I think a lot of fans have a lot to remember about AJ. I remember the very first time herself and Caitlyn went one-on-one for the Divas Championship back at Payback in 2013. That was the exemplification in pure wrestling. In the Divas division, she had so many great challenges to have to overcome as Divas Champion. The 14 Diva Invitational at WrestleMania 30 just last year. That was an amazing match where AJ had a 1 in 14 chance of winning the match and retaining her title. She was able to do that the following night, losing it to Paige. She gave us so many moments that I think she will be remembered for, and her videos on YouTube of these matches and moments she gave us will be watched millions of times over. Definitely the view count, the number of views for AJ videos on YouTube this week, definitely blowing through the roof and blowing beyond the expectations of anyone in the entertainment or professional wrestling business or the sports world. AJ is definitely one of the most downloaded and viewed divas on YouTube, and personalities just really this week with this announcement of her retirement. But the biggest thing about this is we need an explanation from AJ. She briefly got into the explanation, but she never gave us enough info, if you would, on the explanation behind her retirement. And I think that's where she really fucked up this retirement, because she really owed us a public explanation over a microphone. I really hate how people just walk away from the professional wrestling business without an explanation. People like Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock have done it, saying they wanted nothing to do with professional wrestling ever again, only to return years after. They announced their walkaways from professional wrestling, going on with their personal lives, obviously, taking their balls and going home. One thing you will never hear from me, and I've always said this, I've contemplated, walking away from it all, but I've always said this in response to people who've said I've been done with wrestling for a number of years and entertainment for years. You will never hear me go on Twitter and release a tweet or a post on Facebook about my retirement. If I do make the decision to walk away from this, I'll be very direct with it. I'll come out publicly and announce it, but I'm not going to be doing it anytime soon. Others like The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, AJ, The Undertaker can take their balls and go home. The proverbial balls and the proverbial silver spoons they've been born with in their mouths, and they can walk away from the professional wrestling business and made them who they are, but I'll never do it. It's just amazing to me how many people have made the decision to walk away from the wrestling business. I don't know why they do it. Obviously, there was a number of issues resulting from this. Obviously, there's something going on in their professional lives, better deals maybe with television or movies. Maybe there's something going on with that. Maybe there's something going on in their personal lives. I really don't know the explanations as to why so many people have made the decision